Good morning. So, today we're talking about doctors. My friend Christina, who I'm sure has had her fair share of doctor's visits, has asked me to talk about doctors. I'm going to start off with a little anecdote from a show that I watched called Embarrassing Bodies. It's a British show. Basically, they take like a walk-in clinic thing, mobile clinic, and take really weird, embarrassing stuff. Can be disgusting, but it's a pretty neat show overall. Anyway, one of the patients was a little overweight, just starting to get fat, that kind of overweight. And he went to the clinic about stuff that typically happens when you start to gain weight, like you're fatigued, your muscles hurt a little bit more, you're just generally a more unhealthy person. But instead of just telling him that, they left it as an option. They told him basically like, hey, you've gained weight, so that could be an issue. But here, let's try this test, this test, this test, and rule out some of the other stuff that it could be. Lo and behold, he was just gaining weight, and they told him just to go on a diet. But a lot of doctors over here don't really have that attitude. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a doctor's office with a legitimate concern, including my mental health concerns, and they kind of just tell me I'm fat and call it that. That's the problem. Lose weight and you'll be healthy. It's not always like that. Like, what if I actually do have an underlying problem? Which I might. Who knows? No one's tested me because I'm fat. It goes with like that with if you have any sort of... If you're an addict, that's a big one. My dad was an alcoholic, and he'd go to the hospital. He'd have seizures when he wouldn't drink. But the doctors there, they treated him like crap. Like, I understand he's an alcoholic, but he's just a person. That's coming from me. Like, my mom went to visit him one time, and he had the roof, his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. Like, legitimately, my mom had to, like, get a cotton swab and peel his tongue off of the roof of his mouth. No human being deserves that. I don't care who you are. Like, you're still a human. You're one of us. Stuff like that. Doctors and hospital staff, doctor staff can be mean and judgmental for no reason. And I think a part of that is doctors are getting paid quite a bit. And people are more into it for the money rather than the compassion and actually helping people, which is unfortunate. A big part of what makes diagnosing a mental illness so difficult is because you can't necessarily see it. Unless you're self-harming, unless you're anorexic, unless you're morbidly obese, there's no real way to gauge it. It's not like you can just draw some blood and say, oh, you're bipolar. You can't. You have to base it off of your honesty, and the doctor has to listen to you. That's why I say it's very important to understand your diagnosis. Hello, cat. Cat. Sorry about that. You have to understand your diagnosis, and you have to be honest with you and the doctor. If you are not honest with the doctor, that really lessens your chance of ever getting helped. But it's even harder when the doctor isn't honest with you. And this can go from mental illness to cancer to anything, any reason you go to the doctor. My mom had cancer, and when we started doing the cancer treatment, the doctors were really bad. Really, really bad. She didn't start treatment until 2 months into her diagnosis. No one explained to us that it's okay to start chemo and then change chemo later on. So we were waiting on a test to come back, and we're like, well, we should wait on that, because it was a Caris test, and you were able to tell if it had a certain gene in it to determine what chemo you'd be put on. No one explained that to us, so we were just sitting there waiting, and lo and behold, a month after the test was taken, which is plenty of time for the test to come back, I went up there, asked, hey, what's going on with this test? We're kind of getting tired. It had just been ordered 2 days prior. I have never been so angry in my life. We switched doctors after that. But that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Doctors don't necessarily advocate for you, especially when they deal with tough diseases, or diseases that are slightly unknown, which mental illnesses are still slightly unknown. It's frustrating. So, with doctors being like that, you really have to be your own advocate, which is why you have to be honest with yourself and kind of do your own research and learn. Depending on your illness, there's tons of chat rooms, support groups. They might offer almost better insight than a doctor. And just because doctors are so much in the business of numbers, especially when you see your primary care physician, or say you go to urgent care, they want to get you in and out because they want to meet their numbers. They want to see as many patients as possible because that means there's more money in their pocket, in their, it's not a firm, in their doctor's pocket, They don't take their time anymore. It's just really frustrating. I also got asked to talk a little bit about how I came to my diagnosis, and it started really early. I'll leave out some of the details for now, but when I was 14, I used to cut myself, and went shoe shopping with my mom, and I wanted to try on a sandal. Lo and behold, I had cuts on my leg. I was very smart at 14, and she saw them. We did not get shoes. We went home, and she was pissed. I mean, I thought she would cry and be really worried. No, she was angry, and I got grounded, which made me feel like crap. I mean, I was just doing something to survive and being punished for it. So we had a long talk, and I asked, can I go to the doctors? Can I see about getting antidepressants? Something to help. She thought it was just a phase. She was really angry. She didn't want to, but she made the appointment anyway. And I felt like the doctor really didn't, believe me either. He put me on the smallest dose of anything. I felt like nobody was taking me seriously. So lo and behold, not even a month later, I just stopped taking the pills because I wasn't getting enough support from my mom. I just felt it was just more trouble than it was worth. I told my mom one day when I was taking the pills, I said, I feel actually pretty decent today. She's like, well, it doesn't work that way. You have to wait 2 months before you see any results, so that's just a placebo effect. If it's a placebo effect, I still felt good. No harm, no foul in my book, but, she didn't see it that way. So after that, I stopped taking antidepressants. I wasn't seeing a therapist. I made a lot of poor life decisions. From that point to my next, I don't know, mental health event, which was in college, I decided it was time to see a therapist. Because by that time my dad was sick. He also had cancer. And I had to face the fact of him dying, and I was not on good terms with my father. So that caused a lot of strife. So I went to see a therapist. It was good. We talked. But I feel like some of the university therapists, they're ready to handle, like, I'm homesick. I don't know. I'm having trouble going to class. That kind of thing. They're not really there to deal with death and rape and, the really big things that some students go through. Because I had, throughout my entire college career, I had 4 therapists. I'll talk about each one. The first one, he's good. Okay, I needed to talk to somebody. He was someone to talk to. The second one, I really don't remember at all. So that's how much of an impact that person made. I think it was like a year after the first one. And the third one, I felt so bad for this guy. So when my ex-fiance broke up with me, I was reeling, and I just went right to the counseling center, told them it was an emergency, I need to talk to somebody now. So I get this like timid little Asian man, and there's a language barrier, and I'm like bawling my eyes out, trying to talk to this guy, and he's just, reaffirming me and everything that I'm believing and stuff. But, he fulfilled his purpose. I needed to unload on somebody and calm down, and he was there, and he offered me, do you want to see me again? And I said, no, I think I'm okay. Because, I knew my mom was coming in and stuff. So I didn't really need anybody else. After that, that's when I moved back home, and I went to Wayne State University for a couple semesters. There, there was a really, really wonderful therapist, and I'm blanking on her name. Was it Denise, I think? She's great. She's LGBT friendly, which was nice. Her office just had this really, really warm, inviting atmosphere. She's great to talk to. You could tell she was purely listening, purely non-judgmental, and she had tools to really help someone that was in a really dark spot. She was great, but then, unfortunately, I left Wayne State and couldn't see her anymore. So, then, Wayne State, I left, moved to Battle Creek with my boyfriend for a little bit. There, nothing really was going on. Both of us knew I was still having issues in the mental health department. But my boyfriend gives me support like you would not believe. So that made it a lot better. In a way, he was a better therapist than many of the people I've already talked to, which shouldn't be when you think about it, but I'm glad it was. What was the next step? Went to Battle Creek. Came back here once my mom was diagnosed with cancer. From there, let's see. I had a bit of a mental breakdown back in October. My mom was getting sicker, and I didn't know how to handle it. I also had a full-time job that was incredibly stressful for me. I was trying to kill it. I had an hour to an hour and a half drive each way. It was just, there were long days. My mom would, ask me, I'm dying and you're not over here. Like, what's wrong with that? I'm like, okay, I guess I should put in my 2 weeks to, make more time for my mom. So I put in my 2 weeks. That was on October 10th October 11th, I was driving to work and I realized that I was having a mental breakdown. I could not stop crying. I called up my friend and asked him, would you please go to the ER with me? And of course he said yes. Joe, thank you. So at the ER, it was a great ER. I went to Henry Ford at 19 in Garfield. Would recommend it to anyone. Honestly, the best hospital staff I've encountered. Everybody really non-judgmental. Really, really nice. I mean, for someone who was having a mental breakdown, I was okay. So from there, later that night, they took me to what they called East. I honestly, to this day, don't know what it's actually called. It was just called East. Somewhere off of Groesbeck in Mount Clemens area. Sorry. My sinuses are terrible in the morning. So I went there, and I don't know how many people on, that I'm talking to have been to a mental hospital. But it's not great. To me, people thought I was crazy because I was happy there. It was like a mini vacation in my head. I was filled in a room full of crazies just like me, and a couple little crazier. I use crazy as like a term of endearment, because there were some really great people in there, like really great. But I thought more healing would be done. I felt as if it was kind of just like a doctor's visit, like my doctor's visit when I was 14, but I was just staying there. The doctor that I talked to didn't give much time to his patients, and I'm sure he's super busy. It's probably honestly not his fault, because people in facilities like that are really overworked. I had some conversations with would be kind of like the RNs, the assistants, and they go through a lot. They work super long hours, and they're dealing with crap, sometimes literal crap, all day. And I felt really bad. I made it a point to thank them for everything, and yeah, just something needs to be done with our entire health system, because it's not working. It's not going to continue to work. It's like on the brink of going nuts. But anyway, so mental hospital, at least when I went to, it was fairly nice. It wasn't too dirty. Air was dry, but compared to the way my house was back then, that place was a palace. So had some good conversations with people. I will tell you that the most healing I did was when I had conversations with other, I want to call them inmates, but that sounds weird. Oh well, with the other patients. There we go. That's the word. Which was nice. There was a feeling of kind of like camaraderie, and that was something that I wasn't really getting, and that I haven't gotten in quite a while. It was a lot of people that were going through similar things, but we were all very different, which was, it really, I don't know, it was an experience. Food wasn't too bad, but anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. They diagnosed me with severe depression, possible bipolar, and that was that. They sent me, I was there for about a week. After that, I didn't have insurance at the time, so they took me to what they called crisis stabilization, which was basically something that was covered by the state. I had a meeting with my psychiatrist, a meeting with a therapist, and a group therapy every week. So 3 things every week. It was basically like a part-time job, which I thought that program was great, and I think that program should be offered to people who also have insurance. It was a very good morph into kind of like real life. So there we talked about more about bipolar, and my second to last therapy session, Amanda, who was my therapist, who was wonderful. She was so great to talk to. She talked about borderline personality disorder, and that's me. Like, we were talking about it, and I couldn't believe I had already always toyed with the idea, because when I was at CMU, I took a counseling class, where we learned many of the diagnoses, like the common ones, and BPD was there, and I'm like, this sounds like me. But then I talked to some other people, and and they're like, no, that's not you, that's not you, that's not you. You don't have that. You're just going through like that syndrome. If you read anything, you're going to compare it to yourself, and you're going to have that disease. Lo and behold, I have it. Which means I'm going to be working for the rest of my life to better myself and to get rid of it. But that's okay. Went to this crisis stabilization. Unfortunately, that's kind of where my journey has left off. Crisis stabilization was only a 28-day program, and by the end of that 28 days, I had just gotten insurance. They had referred me to a DBT program, and the walk-in hours for like new patients was on the following day. It was a Tuesday. But my mom needed me that day, so I basically said, okay, I'll go next week. Well, next week she passed away. So I didn't go that week. And now I've just been kind of in this flux of needing to go get help, being too anxious to go get help. I've contemplated putting myself back in East, to have people help me get on the right path. I just don't know what the right path is yet. And right now I'm doing okay. I painted this room. I've been active. I've been sleeping better. I've been getting up at a decent time. Today I got up at like 9:30, which is a little late than usual. I've been waking up at like 8:30, which is great. I want to get into that habit while I figure out what the next route is. If you guys have any questions to me about my experience, I know that my videos are kind of all over the place, but I don't have a script. I literally tried to write one. I don't know if you can see this. I have 2 actual bullet points and 1 failed one. So I'm not good at scripts, but I'll have to do that. Once again, thank you guys for listening and liking, maybe subscribing. I'm aiming to put out a video once a week, because I tried last week to do 2 and I didn't do 2, as you guys can tell. So 1 week seems like a good number. If you guys have any more questions, concerns, you want to tell me you love me, you want to tell me you hate me, go ahead, go for it. I encourage all of the feedback. I know, I'm talking to my boyfriend here. I know that my webcam bugs you. I know that you don't like my trashy microphone, but whatever. Yeah, so thank you for sharing my morning with me. I think I'm going to start doing these in the morning and call it something like, I don't know, Good Morning with Rosie, or Have a Cup of Coffee with Rosie. Something like that. You got any other names that'll work out? Feel free to let me know. And I will see you wonderful people later.